Hi, my name is Kevin Dupria, student number 1801316. This is my submission for the COS 330 Practical 7 HoneyPot Demonstration. When it comes to honeypots, there are many types of honeypots that one can implement or make use of. As seen by this GitHub repo over here, it's essentially just a collection of different honeypot implementations. All of these have different purposes and different uses. A lot of the honeypots you can see here have different areas in which they fall. So you get database honeypots, you get web honeypots, general service honeypots, even some DeFi and distributed honeypots. Then you've got botnets, you've got all sorts of different implementations, but for the purposes of this demo today, we will be looking at the SSH honeypots, and more specifically this SSHME honeypots implementation, which is essentially a fake SSH server that lets everybody in and logs their activity. So going to this repo implemented by Jackski, we can just see the guide to installing it. So if you would like to do this honeypot yourself, you are welcome to just follow the instructions on this Git repo. They are very straightforward and simple, and they make it very easy to implement, especially on a virtual machine. And we will now have a look at how we did it with our virtual machine now. Okay, so here in our virtual machine, we can install our dependencies for the package that we are going to be using. The first one is Golang, which is essentially the language that the package is written in, which is Go. And the second one we're going to need is this apt-get install git, because we're going to be cloning the repo from GitHub. And to do that, we're going to say, okay, go get-u github.com/jacksie, and then sshme. And that's going to end up cloning it and putting it into your go/bin. And then if we run the ls here, we can see that the application is now here. To run this application, it's pretty straightforward. It's literally ./sshme, like that. And there you can see a RSA key wasn't found, so it generated one. And here we can see that it's running on port 127.0.0.1 on port 2022. So that's currently where this honeypot is listening. And now we are going to configure it and see how we can actually access it. So now to configure our honeypot, we can set up a SSH configuration. And to do that, we're going to just follow the steps on the GitHub repo, where we set up a config file called openssh.yaml. And inside of that config file, we have a version of the OpenSSH that we want to run. And once you've got that, you can set the config like this, where we say, okay, we want to run sshme with a configuration of our ssh.yaml file. And once we hit enter with that, you can see now that it is running and listening on port 127.0.0.1 on port 2022. So now if we bring in another terminal here and we actually SSH into the root at, let's say localhost, and we specify the port as 2022, we can now see that it has registered that a user has connected to our honeypot, and there you can see their IP address. And with that, we can now be under the impression as an attacker or infiltrator that we're accessing root at localhost password. So even if we enter something completely wrong and enter it, it takes it as correct. And now, as you can see in the logs here, we can see that a session was requested and a shell has been requested. And now any command that the attacker runs is tracked and logged within this within the actual honeypot itself. So we are able to see what commands are being run. So if we do something like cd home, it will there say, okay, the input is cd home and it was done at this time by this IP address. And that is basically the gist of this specific type of honeypot. Once again, there are many types of honeypots out there, and this is just one that I thought was quite interesting. But I hope this video explained enough about it to convince you why this is a good idea. It helps you also understand what kind of commands are being run on compromised systems. So that might just be the biggest benefit. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.